Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Maha Munib and I'm going to talk to you today about critical reading. Our objectives for today cover the following points: definition of critical reading, characteristics of critical reading, reasons for critical reading, types of evidence, questions for the critical reader. Before we go into details about critical reading, why we need critical reading, why it's important for university students, and why it's important for our module, and all these things, we need to know what is critical reading in the first place. Critical reading, one of the many definitions actually for critical reading is that critical reading is an important precursor to critical writing. So reading and writing in this case are related to each other. Critical reading is some kind of a preparation for critical writing. And what we mean by critical writing, once you are a university student, you will be required to write about topics, submit research and reports, and this involves a lot of critical reading and writing as well. So let's see together what are the most characteristic features of critical reading. Critical reading involves a lot of examination. This is a word that is going to be repeated a lot when we talk about critical reading. You examine things, but what exactly do you examine? You examine the evidence or the arguments presented. Any piece of writing, any kind of text has arguments, has points of view, has perspectives, and you need to examine that as a critical reader. The best thing you can do is to examine the evidence or the arguments presented to you and check out any influences on these arguments. Is there any kind of pressure or influence or any kind of bias towards those evidences or not? Check out the limitations of study design or focus. We know that any kind of study has limitations. Nothing is perfect. After all, it's a human work. So there are limitations for the studies, even the scientific one. Even the scientific studies lack, sometimes they lack proper evidence or lack proper investigation. So all the time you are checking, you are examining, you are investigating as a critical reader. Examine also the interpretations made. I can present you with a piece of information that appears very innocent and to the surface level of things, but actually uh, this piece of information can be interpreted in many ways, and it can be interpreted from different perspectives by different interest groups. So it's not about presenting you with information as much as about what's behind that information. You also, as a critical reader, need to decide to what extent you are prepared to take the author's opinion or arguments. Are you ready to take them blindly as they are, or you're ready to investigate and look into this evidence and check out the influences, the biases, the interpretations? Critical reading actually requires a lot of effort on the part of the reader. You are not a passive receiver of information. You are an active, actually, receiver of information, since you are going to interpret that information. You are going to look for the things beneath the surface, and you need to check out anything that is given to you. No blind acceptance of anything. As I was just saying, why is critical reading needed, and especially for university students who are going to make a lot of research during their study years and are required to be very, very active critical readers? It's needed because there should be no blind acceptance of any piece of information, either technical, scientific, or even literary. So the idea of this blind acceptance of the text cannot live with the idea of critical reading. Critical reading is all about evaluation, the strength of the evidence, because you're always evaluating, you're always checking, you're always examining, you're always investigating what's given to you. So definitely there is no blind acceptance of the text. There is no blind acceptance of the information you're given. Even for scientific and technical information that appears to be very objective and just informative, this is not the case with critical reading. As a critical reader, you should be trained to the different types of evidence. So you should know that there are different types of evidence. We have the technical and the scientific evidence, the literary evidence. And in both cases, the critical reader wants to find the rationale, the reason behind using those evidence in this particular way. So for technical and scientific evidence, this might include measurements, equipment, timing, the control of factors, and the standard procedures taken while doing that, having that evidence for the text. And for the literary evidence, this may include individuals' interpretations of some experience and the identification and the analysis of certain themes, a range of themes in the piece of writing checking. In any case, either technical, scientific, or literary, the critical reader is opting for the rationale, is trying to find the rationale, is trying to find why did the writer of that piece chose that evidence in particular and not any other evidence. You know that there are plenty of evidence for things. Why would I choose one evidence instead of another one? Why would I choose this particular equipment rather than another one? Why should I choose those procedures rather than other procedures? This all involves a process of selection, and it's not innocent and it's not devoid of any kind of biases. This is what you should know from the very beginning, even for technical and scientific evidences. Now, any critical reader should ask himself or herself a number of questions. Those are the questions for the critical reader. Why did the writer select that particular topic of inquiry? Why did this writer choose this topic for inquiry, for his or her research? Is there a particular reason for choosing that topic rather than any other topic? Why did the writer decide to use that particular methodology? Because writers have ways of presenting their topics. It's not about just writing about a topic. For research purposes, writers have methodologies, have a way of presenting the topic. So why did the writer choose this specific method to conduct their work? Why did the writer select that particular process of analysis, for example? You are reading about an analysis for a certain topic, and definitely there are many ways to analyze that topic, but the piece you are writing, you're reading about has a particular way of analysis. So you should ask yourself as a critical reader, why did the writer choose this part? Or why did the writer choose this particular way of analysis? As you can see the chart on the slide here, critical reading starts with maybe you should be looking at the title of the piece you're reading about, maybe some biography about the author that wrote this piece. Who is it for? So you'll be asking yourself about the audience. Who is this for? Who is the target audience for this piece? What's the thesis of this piece? What's the main argument? What's the main idea the author is trying to communicate in this piece of writing, which we call the thesis? What is the evidence is this writer giving or providing the readers with so that he or she can convince the readers of their argument or thesis? Are there notes? How can I evaluate my notes about those notes about this piece of writing? So the questions for the critical reader involve so many things. Some of the things I just mentioned right now, and actually critical reading is a matter of training. You need to be trained to read things critically. So in our module, English for Academic Purposes, there are certain critical reading questions that we are interested in, and I think you should be very much trained to it because they serve you a lot. One of those questions is about what is the author's purpose? In this question, you are trying to find, as I said, what's the rationale? What's the reason behind this piece of writing? Why is this writer interested in this topic, and what is he trying to communicate here? So the question about what is the author's purpose is a question about reason, is a question about the message behind this piece of writing. You know that any kind of text has a message. Writers do not just write haphazardly, just for writing's sake. Even if that is one of their purposes, then it's also a message. So you need to identify what's the message here. What is this person trying to tell you? Because you know that writing is a kind of communication. So even if it's a scientific piece, a scientific research or whatever, or a technical research or a report, it is also communicating a message. The writer here or the author is trying to deliver a message to you, and you as a critical reader should be aware of that message. The second most important question is, what do you infer from? In this question, you're trying to interpret things that are not given to you directly, but are communicated indirectly. So your interpretation is a kind of an analysis, a way to grasp the meaning that was not communicated directly. The author here, or the writer, for example, is not telling you directly and straightforward that I want to tell you so and so, but is trying to give you clues and evidence so that you can search in those clues and evidence and interpret them in a way that would deliver a certain message to you. So when I say, what do you infer from? You are trying to find the hidden message of the text, the message behind the lines or between the lines. Another third important question is about identify evidence about. You know that critical reading, as I said before, is all about evidence, is all about finding evidence. So you're not taking the piece of writing blindly, as we said before. You're trying to identify evidence. You're trying to find why is this given in this certain way. So evidence in scientific research involves, as I said before, measurement, involves procedures, involves equipment, involves timing, involves a certain sample of research, and this tells me a lot about the message of the text. What is the author's tone is another question that critical readers should be concerned about, because tone involves attitudes, involves emotions, involves stances. So I need to know whether this author is biased or not, or is kind of taking sides or not, or trying to present an argument and show the positive side of the argument while hiding, for example, the negative side, or vice versa. Someone who's concentrating only on the negative side of things, and the tone is kind of concerned or worried about something. So tone involves emotions. So when I say the author of this piece of writing was happy, this involves emotion. How do I know that he was happy or she was happy? Through the use of vocabulary, for example. Someone who uses very positive vocabulary that delivers happiness, this means that this person is happy. Someone who uses very negative vocabulary that delivers sadness or pain or whatever of those negative feelings, this means that the writer is sad. So I need to check the vocabulary, I need to check the diction, I need to check the attitude he's trying to deliver through his or her emotions. Now, critical reading, as you can see on the slide, when you read something and you evaluate claims, seek definitions, judge information, demand proof, and question assumptions, you're thinking critically. So it's all about questioning. It's all about evaluating. It's all about judging. It's all about seeking evidence, seeking definitions, and trying to understand claims or assumptions. This is all about critical reading. In the conclusion, critical reading is all about investigation, evaluation, analysis, interpretation. It's not an easy task, but it's very good for researchers, for students in particular, because it teaches you a lot about what you're reading about. You do not take information blindly, but you question everything, you ask about everything, And this gives you more perspectives into things, gives you more details about things, so that you pay attention to things that you were thinking that they are minor or of no use, but actually they are. And you kind of go deep into the text rather than have the surface meaning of the text alone. So you need to investigate, to evaluate the evidence that you are given, investigate that evidence, analyze its uses and how it was presented to you, interpret attitudes and biases. Then you are a good critical reader. Now we come to the end of our presentation about critical reading. Those are the references. You can always go back to them and check more ideas about critical reading and know more about critical reading. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in another class.